Sonic Frontiers opens a lot like Lost World, even down to the music, with a Mario Galaxy-style symphony to soar over new horizons. We've seen numerous Sonic games feature the Mario cadence in the opening zone, but you'll soon find out that it's definitely not in Frontier's first stage. Maybe that's why series composer Tomoya Ohtani snuck a Mario cadence into this opening overture. Just like in Lost World, the plane's engine malfunctions. But in Frontiers, the place you end up in is not exactly your grandmother's lost hex. Way to make an impression. This is Big Data's dream come true, and a nightmare for everyone else. So much for the major keyed melodies in the green hills of past games. The closest thing to a lead melody is played on what sounds like a hammered dulcimer, the instrument you hear at the very end of the Game of Thrones theme. The melody on this instrument is fairly meandering, fragmented and formless in the endless digital void. That melody in the entire song is written in the key of A sharp minor, a scale that composers tend to stay away from because the key signature is crowded with 7 sharps, meaning you have to raise every note on the staff by 1 semitone. That's a lot to keep track of in your head on the fly, but it's no sweat for this ultra-powered cyberspace network. The song is just pure energy and aggression. It's so mechanical and unforgiving. We don't even get much by way of chord changes, and the bass just pulses 16th notes on the 1 the whole time. And the situation only escalates, with these sirens building up to a choir of creepy angels, a warning about technology flying too close to the sun. This is going hard. You have to remind yourself, this is the first level, man. Previous games had in-game lyrics about rolling around at the speed of sound to follow your rainbow. Yeah, no, not in Sonic Frontiers, where the words discuss a hyper-controlled cybernetic database and spoken in triplets. As someone who grew up on Radiohead, this type of chilling anthem is a real treat. And speaking of, the track peters out with this minimal beat sounding like it's right out of a Tom York album. But you probably didn't complete all 4 missions on the first run through, so the results screen music is fairly neutral, floating in the digital ether. But once you complete all 4 missions, it fleshes out the results screen music with this slick beat. After this fever dream, Sonic wakes up and immediately gets barking orders from a faceless adventure guide.
Find the Chaos Emeralds. Destroy the Titans. Tear down the walls between dimensions.
Yeah, okay, sure. How about a little context? Hello?
Much like Sonic, the player is very hungry for that context, and the music seems to be aware of this because it doesn't provide clear-cut answers. The chord structure is minimal and doesn't provide cadences with obvious momentum back to the 1. Each chord phrase ends up hanging on the 6th chord, with no further path to climb back up toward the tonic, like with an Eggman cadence, for example. Instead, it's just, oh, okay, we're back at the 1 again. The chords wander in this manner while Sonic tries to find his way around, investigating suspicious items for leads, but coming up lost and lonely again and again. 4 years before Frontier's release, The open zone music for Chronos Island was the first piece Ohtani began composing for the game, written to reflect the situation Sonic's in and the story behind the island. He said the biggest challenge was capturing the immersive feeling of the open zone while simultaneously reflecting the excitement of an action game. And striking this careful balance between stillness and motion actually led to the title of the game's official soundtrack. We hear these contrasting components at work in the chord expressions. Chronos' first movement only features chords 5 and above, the same limited range of chords we saw at Sky Sanctuary. It's a fitting choice for Chronos Island, what with Sonic's feeling trapped in the middle of nowhere, despite the apparent freedom of movement. But within this limited range, Ohtani subtly introduces some significant motion, yet while still preserving the song's calm mysteriousness. Instead of selecting pitches in this sequential area, he bumps up the 5 minor chord up an octave. So the pitch actually does do a fair bit of movement while Sonic dashes up huge hills and through deep valleys. But it's all still within the framework of these closely packed chords, and it's impressive that they don't feel like abrupt, disjointed leaps. And if Ohtani was arranging the sheet music for a solo pianist, he might use the notation for a fermata, a symbol that tells the performer to hold the chord a bit longer than its normal duration. And actually the exact duration of that hold is at the performer's discretion, because there's not a set tempo mandating when the next chord should occur in time. But you can bet that if they perform this at a Sonic Symphony show, everyone in the orchestra will be looking at the conductor in order to start the next measure all at the same time. One of the instruments that needs to come back in time is the horn, which provides this 4-to-1 melody line. We saw this melody path in Launch Base in service of an abrupt lack of finality, and it's an effective composition choice here in the context of Sonic's sudden thrust into this cryptic environment. The song eventually loops back to the start, to the first thing Sonic hears when waking up on Chronos Island, which is this ominous buzzing, the constant buzz of this cyber network spanning every inch of the islands. Which is reminiscent of the Social Network movie's main theme, Hand Covers Bruise, which builds anxious anticipation of that ubiquitous digital empire, evil consequences notwithstanding. On your first playthrough, you might be concerned that this high-speed action-adventure has music of such calm melancholy. But in fact, each time you get an emerald, the music progresses to the next movement in the large suite of compositions for Chronos Island, which means that yes, there are 7 versions of each island's theme, each of which gradually escalate the drama and emotion. Interestingly, that key of A-sharp minor in Cyberspace was retained in Chronos Island's first movement, but from the second movement on, it's all in the key of C minor, which has a much less crowded key signature. Which is a nice touch, because it took Sonic a bit of dashing around the island to shake off the initial shock of that whole cyberspace ordeal. Now, whereas the first movement didn't have much by way of rhythmic tempo, the piano in Movement 2 has a consistent structure that begins by emulating baby steps, as Sonic comes into his own on this new turf. This piano part gradually transitions to an ostinato, which is a melody phrase that repeats consistently even if the chords underneath are changing. This motif of just 3 pitches holds it down with the steady pace of Sonic's footsteps while he's running through this dynamic terrain. The next ostinato shows Sonic sprinting up and down hills, regardless of the dangerous enemies in his path. And what an elegant flow of presentation when the Max Ring cutscene plays to boost Sonic to electric top speed. The way the music keeps playing its ostinatos uninterrupted during the supercharge is captivating and divine. And it may slip past you, but the song's midsection contains an elegant nod to Planet Wisp from Sonic Colors, another Ohtani composition. Team Coco or Team Wisp, comment below. While you're at it, sub and give that bell a Liberty Smash. Anyway, Sonic Colors got a fair amount of love in Frontiers. What with this Planet Wisp melody homage, these runways that gradually materialize, and the color scheme of these slot machine comets. And the Wispian build-up culminates in the island's first definitive cadence, a measured use of the 7 chord as a stand-in for the more dominant 5. We don't see a definitive 5-to-1 progression until the 4th movement. And it's this iteration where an electronic beat starts to creep in, as Sonic explores further reaches of cyberspace and gradually uncovering the danger brewing in the island's backstory. It grows less friendly when the beat comes in after the intro measures. Deep into Movement 4, it gradually escalates the sense of danger and panic, as if it's the final moments of the 3rd day in Majora's Mask, with the apocalypse impending. It's only the 4th movement, and already this sounds like the end of the world. But Sonic's up for it, and with a definitive Eggman cadence climbing back up toward the 1, Sonic knows what he has to do. What follows in the remaining 3 movements is a grand escalation that deserves to be soaked in firsthand by you as the player. Because Sonic Frontiers is quite the experience. It's shaping up to be the Sonic series' Phantom Pain. An open zone expansion of firmly established gameplay mechanics, a character portrayal shift toward a seasoned, mature depiction, a mountain of cut content relegated to podcast format, and an abrupt final boss. The biggest difference, though, is that Big Boss can catch hedgehogs, but only Frontiers has fishing with Big the Cat. And maybe we could just yeah. Lo-fi is one of Ohtani's things. Awesome that it made it into the game. And now a generation of kids will go on fishing trips with a lo-fi playlist that includes his music.